We are now going to discuss MST's taxi voucher program. In this section, we'll be talking about the origin of the program and some of the history behind it. We're going to be discussing the three types of program, or three ways in which an individual can qualify for the program, and specifically the senior, veteran, and disabled voucher programs. And then we will be discussing both the customer's responsibilities under this program as well as the driver's responsibilities under this program. Program's history and overview. In 2011, the taxi voucher program pilot was launched, and it was launched in Pacific Meadows, which is a senior residential facility in Carmel, or kind of Carmel Valley. That program was a grant-funded program, and at the time it had a requirement that anybody who participated in the program needed to have an accessible vehicle, but that is no longer a requirement. However, I would strongly encourage drivers to pursue obtaining accessible vehicles because there is a considerable demand for accessible taxis in Monterey County. Moving on to the next bullet point, in 2012, the program expanded to ride certified customers. In 2013, the program expanded to seniors and anyone who is 65 or older and living in one of the participating cities. In 2014 through 2015, the program continued to expand, and it was at that point that the grant funds were exhausted, and the program has since been supported by Measure Q, which does not have the accessible taxi requirement. It was at that point that the requirement was removed. And finally, in 2016 and 17, the program expanded to veterans. As you can see, the program has continued to expand over the last 9 or so years, and is one of the most popular programs the MST Mobility Department offers. Program statistics. The number of vouchers issued to date is approximately, it's approaching 600,000. We may actually be there at this point. The number of vouchers that have been used to date is a little over 291,000. It is closely approaching, around 300,000. And as you can see, there's quite a discrepancy between the number of vouchers that have been issued and the number of vouchers that have actually been used. And that's because a lot of folks who participate in the program, they get vouchers, but they don't always use them, and as you'll see later on, the vouchers expire, so if they don't use them, they expire and they can't ever use them. So that's why there's quite a big difference in the number of vouchers that we've issued versus how many have been used. And then last bullet point here is the number of customers that are currently enrolled is around 5,700 or so, which is quite substantial. As you can see, there are thousands of taxi voucher users who rely on the convenience and efficiency of the program, and you, as their driver, serve a vital role by ensuring safe and carefree travel for your customers. Why the program was implemented. In this first bullet point here, MST received feedback from senior, veteran, and the disabled community. It was very difficult for these customers to get taxi transportation, especially if they were low income or using a mobility device. Customers often wanted to take short trips, which were not always as profitable for taxi drivers. When we reached out to the local taxi providers to ask them if complaints from the senior and disabled communities was accurate, we were told that oftentimes short trips with seniors and disabled passengers resulted in smaller tips and additional service on the part of the drivers. They felt that they spent more time on these types of trips and weren't compensated enough to make those trips profitable. So that's why this program was created. It subsidizes the cost for those who can't afford regular taxi fare, and it provides drivers with an incentive to provide these short trips because drivers are always guaranteed a minimum amount. And moving on to the last bullet point here, short trips can also strain MST's ADA paratransit program, also known as rides. When MST Rides has to send a vehicle from, say, Salinas to Pacific Grove to pick up a passenger who is taking a very short trip, it's a tremendous strain on resources. So if a taxi can be dispatched that's closer to the origin of the trip, that saves money, time, and customers definitely appreciate it too. How the program works. The customer calls dispatch to book a taxi. The customer pays a $3 copay. The voucher itself is valued at $14, which pays for the rest of the trip up to a metered fare reading of $17. The customer is responsible for any amount above the $17 metered amount, and that's including the copay. And all trips must go through your taxi company's dispatch in order to ensure that there is a record of the trip. I can't stress this enough that all trips must go through dispatch. We need to have a record of every trip for a variety of reasons, but oftentimes if there are complaints that are associated with a specific trip, we would need the details of the trip, and we just want to ensure that everyone is following the guidelines for this trip, so we need a record of every single trip for this program. Benefits for the customers. This program offers same-day service, so a customer can call that day and use the service and use a taxi voucher. It subsidizes a large part of the cost of the trip. It makes it easier for customers to get transportation for short trips, and many customers report enjoying the flexibility of using taxi cabs. We get a lot of positive feedback from customers telling us that they enjoy riding in taxis because they are more comfortable than some of the other vehicles that are used to provide the service. Benefits for the drivers. As mentioned, the driver is guaranteed at least $17 for the trip, regardless of the length. We also feel that it increases the clientele by encouraging people to use taxis that ordinarily would not because of the cost. There are a lot of taxi voucher customers who have never previously used taxis. So this program has helped to sustain the industry against competition from companies like Uber and Lyft by expanding the customer base. And lastly, the shorter the trip, the bigger the tip. The shorter the trip, the bigger the tip. There are three main programs under the taxi voucher program umbrella, and I'll start with the first one, which is the Senior Voucher Program, which is for individuals who live in participating cities and who are 65 years or older. As mentioned, the customer must be 65 years or older and must live in one of the following cities or unincorporated areas, and those are Carmel, Carmel Valley, Delray Oaks, Marina, Monterey, Pacific Grove, Pebble Beach, Sand City, Salinas, and Seaside. And for all these programs, I want to stress that the program works the same. The only difference is the way in which customers obtain their vouchers. The second program is the Veteran Voucher Program, which is geared towards individuals who have served active duty in one of the branches of the U.S. military. The requirements to receive these vouchers is that you must provide documentation showing that you have served active duty in a branch of the U.S. military. And in order to obtain your vouchers, you must go to one of the following locations: the Veteran Transition Center, which is in Marina, the Veterans Resource Center, which is in Monterey, which is actually recently been renamed to Nation's Finest. It's still in the same location on Bonifacio. Then there are vouchers available at MPC, Monterey Peninsula College, in the Veterans Resource Center, as well as at Hartnell in the Hartnell Veterans Service Center. And veterans receiving vouchers from one of the colleges, MPC or Hartnell, must be an enrolled student. The Disabled Voucher Program is for individuals who are certified in the MST Rides ADA Paratransit Program. And there are some other local disability organizations that have vouchers that they can issue to their clients. And I'll go into those in the next slide. The requirements to receive vouchers for the Disabled Program. What are the eligibility requirements? Well, you must be currently certified in the MST Rides ADA Paratransit Program. Vouchers are distributed by MST and mailed directly to participants upon request and on a quarterly basis. So those are mailed out typically at the beginning of a quarter, and our quarters are in January, April, July, and in October. Moving on to the third bullet point. Additionally, the following local organizations also issue MST taxi vouchers. So they are available at CECIL, which is the Central Coast Center for Independent Living. They're also available at several of the DaVita dialysis centers, specifically Laurel Meadows, Blanco Circle, and Marina. There are some vouchers available through Interim, as well as the VNA, or the Visiting Nurses Association. These organizations have a very limited number of vouchers and issue them on a case-by-case basis depending on their customers' needs. Customer responsibilities. In this section, we'll be talking about the voucher identification, the responsibilities of the customer, as well as payment. So for the voucher, the customer's voucher must have the following: the customer name, or the customer name, their full name printed legibly, their customer signature in the signature section there. You also notice a space for a unique customer ID. This customer ID number is used internally to track vouchers in our system. A voucher is still valid even if that number has been left out, because it is the responsibility of the distribution center to write the customer ID number on the voucher, and that unfortunately doesn't always happen. Therefore, vouchers that have the customer ID number missing are still perfectly valid vouchers. If you are filling out your vouchers and you have a missing customer ID, again, those are still valid. We will pay you for those vouchers. However, if you want to find out the customer ID's number, you can always call our department and I can track down that number for you. But again, it's not a requirement. It's more of an internal tracking number on our end. For identification, the customer must present either a government-issued picture ID, such as a driver's license, a DMV-issued identification card, a passport, or they can show a MST courtesy card, or they can also show their MST rides card. All customers must be ready to show you their ID upon request. If they refuse to provide an ID, you must refuse that trip. On the front of the voucher, it clearly states, and I quote, "Present photo ID to driver. Voucher must be completed fully and legibly." It is the customer's responsibility to show you an ID. Now, if a customer is a regular and you don't have to check their ID every time, if it's somebody that you know and that you recognize and have served before, and you know that they're in the program. But if it's a new customer, please check their ID. Their responsibility, and these are the customer responsibilities. Customer needs to know where they are going. The customer needs to know how to communicate their needs. Customers need to be coherent and understandable, and this is where a pen and paper might come in handy. You may be able to communicate through writing if they are nonverbal. In this last bullet point here, customer needs to be able to self-transfer themselves if they are using a foldable wheelchair that can be stowed in the trunk of a taxi, or in the taxi trunk. It is not your responsibility to be picking up customers to transfer them. That is, a potentially dangerous activity to them and to you as well. Definitely increase your chance of getting injured if you're trying to move people. And always use the utmost caution when you are assisting any of your passengers, particularly ones who have physical or cognitive disabilities. Moving on to payment. The customer pays a $3 copay and 1 voucher for every one-way trip. That $3 payment can be in cash or by credit. This is another important point because you may have customers who on occasion ask for you to go to multiple locations and they want to use just 1 voucher. You must say no, because customers need to use 1 voucher and the copay for each one-way trip. If the customer makes 3 separate stops, they owe you 3 vouchers and $9, for instance. The customer pays the amount on the taxi cab meter reading that exceeds $17 on the trip, and the customer is responsible to pay any amount over $17 in addition to the $3 copay. This is also another important part of the program. As mentioned previously, the entire purpose of this program is to provide short trips for our clients. This program was not designed to accommodate for longer trips. A customer can take a longer trip, but you as the driver must enforce the rule regarding trips that exceed $17 on the meter, and customers need to pay any amount over $17. Customers can pay in cash or credit, as I mentioned, and we used to allow people to use their rides tickets to pay their copays, but that practice was stopped probably 4 or 5 years ago because it was just causing too much trouble or too much confusion between the various programs. So again, now the only way to pay the copay is either in cash or credit. We'll now discuss the driver's responsibilities, and in this section we'll be talking about how to receive a voucher, completing the voucher once it's been received, turning in the voucher. We'll talk about rejected vouchers, disagreements, if you have any disagreements or issues with any of your customers, and how to handle that. And then we'll finish with some driver do's and driver don'ts. Receiving a voucher. Customer verification. We've already discussed this a little bit, but check the customer's picture ID against the customer's name on the voucher. You want to make sure that these 2 names are matching. If the name on the voucher does not match the name on the picture ID, you must refuse the trip. It's really important to check the ID against the customer name on the voucher because we don't want customers giving their vouchers away to someone else. And this can also help us to determine if vouchers were stolen or are being used by someone else. Lastly, confirm the voucher has been signed by the customer. Completing a voucher. The driver is responsible to have the following information completed. And the driver sections are this whole voucher is kind of color coordinated. The blue sections are the sections that the driver fills out, and the beige section is the section that the customer fills out, and the white section, such as the voucher number area and the expiration date, are already pre-filled out. And moving on to the second bullet points here, you're going to want to print your name as well as your TACT ID number. And on that point, you will be given a TACT ID with your TACT ID number printed on it. So please keep that somewhere safe in case you need to refer to it or in case somebody asks to see your TACT ID. Completing a voucher. In this section, it's on the right-hand side of the voucher. And this is the trip date, the customer pickup time, total fare, and total mileage. I would encourage drivers to fill out the voucher in full as soon or as close to as soon as the trip is over. It can oftentimes be difficult to remember trip details long after the fact. So to ensure that the trip information is correct, please fill it out as quickly after the trip as possible. Turning in a voucher. Drivers must turn their vouchers in to their taxicab company to receive payment. Vouchers must be entered in the online database in a timely manner. And for example, so for vouchers for January of 2021, for instance, they must all be turned in to MST by March 1st of 2021. MST cannot accept vouchers from previous months due to how this program is funded. And turn in your vouchers to your taxicab company as soon as they will accept them. In addition to filling out your vouchers soon after the trip, I would encourage you to get a folder or something safe to hold your vouchers in so that you can turn them into your company as soon as they will accept them. If you lose a voucher, MST cannot reimburse you. So please make sure that you keep them in a safe place. Rejected vouchers. These are reasons why a voucher may be rejected or not paid for. They are incorrectly filled out. There's missing information. The voucher is expired. The voucher was used by someone to whom it was not assigned. If there is a complaint associated with the specific voucher trip, the voucher will be set aside until the complaint is resolved. It's pretty rare that vouchers get rejected when compared to the number of vouchers that get turned in. However, vouchers do get rejected for reasons that are easy for the driver to plan against. The most common reason why they get rejected is because they are expired. Customers oftentimes don't realize or don't know that the voucher they're trying to use is expired, so it is your responsibility to really check each voucher before you accept it to make sure it is one that will be reimbursed. Disagreements. What to do in case of a disagreement with your customer. If you have an issue with a customer, number 1, please get the customer's name. Number 2, obtain as much information about the incident as you are able. Number 3, give your information to your employer, and your employer will contact MST to resolve the issue. Please don't argue with customers. Just get as much information about the incident so that it can be investigated quickly and fairly. Driver dues. Do verify the customer's name when you are checking their identification. If the name on the voucher does not match the name on the identification, you must refuse the trip. If the name is illegible, please write their name in legibly. Do fill out the voucher as soon as the trip is over when the information is still fresh in your mind. Do turn in your vouchers as soon as your taxicab company will accept them. And of course, do treat all customers with dignity and respect. Driver don'ts. Don't accept more than one voucher per one-way trip. If a customer does try and get you to accept an additional voucher, please report their activity to MST. I know you might not feel comfortable reporting a customer that is breaking the rules, but it's really important that MST makes contact with customers who are trying to skirt or bend the program rules, or who may not fully understand the program rules. For this program to be successful, we need to make sure that everyone, drivers and customers alike, are following the rules and regulations so that more people can benefit from the program. Moving on to the second bullet point, don't accept vouchers from other drivers who are not tax certified, and don't provide taxi voucher trips to individuals who have not gone through your taxi cab company's dispatch. And these last few slides are just some different examples of what would be acceptable and what would not be acceptable. So this is not acceptable because the customer name is missing, and it's very difficult to read that signature. This is acceptable. There's a customer signature as well as the customer name that's printed in there. In this slide, the customer signature is missing, so that would not be something that we would be able to accept. And in this one, the driver's TAC number is missing, so that would be something that could potentially get sent back. That would be pretty rare. We wouldn't typically reject a voucher just because it had a driver TAC ID number that's missing, but just pay attention to all the vouchers that you turn in and make sure they're filled out completely. And finally, this is sort of like the perfect example of an acceptable voucher. Everything is filled in and accurate, and so that's the type of voucher that we would want to see. In the next section, we'll be discussing the MST Rides program and the ADA.